we move through both of these modes. And being the main character or being that main player energy is something that I feel I really want to encourage you listening to this podcast to cultivate within yourself, to express, because it's something that we used to hold back so much because it was something that would get us in trouble. It would make us stand out. But now in this day and age, it is the people that are speaking freely, that are really practicing that essence of audacity, that are really making a change in the world, that are doing the things that they want to do, that are being noticed, because the world really does favor the brave. It rewards people that go out there and do things that are off script. I have a theory that life is a game and you're rather a main player character or an NPC. Let's talk about it. Hey, I'm Rochelle Fox, and you are listening to the Mindspo podcast, and this is my I Have a Theory series. And today is a little bit of a different one. If things sound different, I want to let you know that I'm currently in a car. I'm on a road trip in Bellingen, and I'm recording today with my man, Soll.
Hello, hello.
So we thought this one would be a fun one because I know that everyone that listens to the Mindspo podcast loves when Soll and I get on the mics and we talk about all things manifestation. So we wanted to do this from the lens of looking at life like a game.
Life is a game whether you look at it like that or not, to be honest. It's just that most people are playing a game that's not a lot of fun. It's very stressful. I think the game is life is a mirror, and what you see out here is directly correlated with what's going on in here. And a lot of people are struggling, and a lot of people are going through very tough times that seem to never end. But when you listen to what people are saying, the little bits that they're letting out, you do hear how negative so many of us seem to be, how pessimistic we can be. And it's no wonder, number one, we're programmed by nature to be pessimistic. It's a survival strategy. And it's also something we're bombarded with all day long, like an echo chamber. We're all affirming to each other how challenging life is. And, we make it a topic of conversation, and then we wonder why bad things keep happening to us. We have a saying like, bad things come in threes. And then we wonder why bad things keep happening. I don't believe bad things come in threes. I believe bad things come in threes if you believe bad things come in threes. And I think the key here is not trying to prove whether this perspective is true or not. Is life a mirror? Is life a game? Etc., etc. The most important question isn't, can I prove it? Should I argue with people about who's right or wrong? That's not the bit that matters. What matters is, how does your life change if you decide to adopt this lens? Because I'll tell you what, if you're going through a tough time and things seem like they're only getting worse, let's say, something we've experienced in our entrepreneurial journey many years ago is you go through a rough patch at some point. You're changing things are coming to a head. Maybe money is going down, that things aren't changing as fast as you were hoping. In that moment, you have a choice. Okay, you can either focus on everything that's bad, let the pessimism and the worry totally overtake you, and now you're stressed, now you're trying to distract yourself, now you're thinking small, now you're just trying to protect the downside. Or you could imagine for a moment, well, what if I was playing a game? What if I was playing literally a video game on the TV and it's called entrepreneurship? And I'm down to $5,000 and I have a bunch of stuff I could do. There are options. There are a lot of options in front of me. Maybe I've got $100 left. Okay. There are options though. There are free things you could do as an entrepreneur. You could go out on the street and just start talking to people and you wonder what happens. So there are all these options in front of you. Now, if you were playing it as a game, if you could manage to disconnect from that fight or flight enough that you could actually see the fun in the challenge, do you now sit there and try your best to protect your last $100 and hope for the best and everything else? Or do you go, all right, I've got $100 left. What are my options? Can I do something here? I think this is the difference between people who have great stories to tell later, which is more valuable than you might expect. When you meet people, what do you end up doing? You're all telling stories, which tells me that two things are really important. Having great experiences which comes from having courage. It definitely happens a lot more if you can look at life in a gamified nature. And number two is being able to share those stories with passion, with confidence. But anyway, I'm rambling here.
No, I
I'm
love
just
that. I was
letting-
listening. I was like, that's exactly what this is about. One thing that you said that really kind of, I was, in the game concept or theory, I feel like if we are players in the game, the things that happen to us are different storylines. And how the game works is there are many different storylines, there's many different quests that you can go on. And how long you get stuck in a quest depends on how long you focus on it and how much time and energy you stay in that particular quest. And realizing that it can always start and stop. And I think people have this idea that like they get stuck in some kind of cycle and they can't get out of it. And I think when you look at life like a game, I want you to recognize that there are so many options available to you. It is an infinite game with so many levels, so many cheat codes. There are all these things that you can do. And I think it's about coming back to the idea of knowing that what you focus on expands. That is one of the key, I think, let's call it a rule of the game. And I think the more that
fundamental law.
Yeah, once you start to recognize that and go, okay, what am I focusing on? What am I predicting? What am I expecting in my head? What am I automatically thinking when I wake up? Am I thinking of the worst case scenario or am I thinking of the best case scenario? And if I'm thinking of the best case scenario, will I have enough optimism to move through whatever happens with excitement and curiosity, even if the best case scenario doesn't happen, because I recognize that it's not what happens to me, but it's my attitude that actually controls where I go in the game. And when you start to recognize these key little things like attitude, perspective, expectation, if you listen to enough manifestation, personal development, self-help content enough, you start to recognize the patterns. And I think this is something I would really encourage you to start doing. Start noticing the things that you keep hearing on repeat and connect the dots. Go, oh, that person was also talking about expectation. Oh, that person was also talking about focus. Oh, I've now heard the reticular activating system, which is your RAS, which is the part of your brain that focuses on things and then brings them into your attention. I've heard that 6 times in the last 6 months. There must be something to that. And the more that we start to see the patterns and then we go, well, what are the little things that I can do that work in alignment with these patterns to make the game easier? Because I think the people that are playing life as a game, that are the main characters, they're the ones that are using these things to their advantage. Now, let's describe, I think we've introduced the idea of a game. I think we need to describe our understanding of players and NPCs. What is an NPC, Chris?
Well, NPC is what's defined in video game world as a non-player character. It's when you're playing Grand Theft Auto and there are people all over the map that are just going about their pre-programmed lives. And it's describing people who are not engaged in, I mean, yes, they're using their free will, but they're using their free will in a way of letting themselves be programmed and predetermined by outside forces. You do everything your parents tell you, you do everything that the society tells you, you follow all the rules, you abandon yourself and your own dreams and hopes and inspirations for the sake of fitting in as much as possible. That's how I would define an NPC. There's nothing wrong with being an NPC, it's just a simple choice.
And I would also say an NPC is someone that maybe has certain programs that are limiting, disempowering, kind of keeping them at a certain kind of level, in a certain level of society that isn't breaking free from that. So they're not acting intuitively, they're acting through a program.
And I do want to say an important nuance here, because we all know people who fit this description. I don't think there is anything wrong with being an NPC in this definition, in just towing the line and fitting in. I think where there is an issue is if your soul is literally telling you that, oh, no, your role in this life right now is actually to do different sort of things, and you are betraying that voice. Because we cannot exist in a society like we do without lots of people playing a less exciting role, you know, basically just making the world work the way it works. So If everybody tried to be an entrepreneur who's going to travel the world and do things crazy, then guess what? The whole thing comes to a screeching halt.
And I also would say this isn't, I want to just caveat
Yeah.
here, like this is not just about entrepreneurship or
No.
doing something extreme.
No.
I would even say like an NPC, it's just someone that feels trapped and isn't happy. So for me, it's someone that is not necessarily fully fulfilled on the inside and is just going through the motions. That's
Yeah.
how I would describe it.
Yeah.
It's not about doing something special or being unique or being this incredible person. It's just someone that is towing the line while also having like a deep urge inside of them to do something different. That's how I describe it.
And not acting on it.
Yes.
I think that's the key thing. So, but if you are somebody who does have a soul's calling that says, you know what, you should maybe ignore what XYZ person is saying a little bit. And despite all of the contrary information, there is some truth inside me that is saying I should pursue whatever it is that you're being called to do. Now, if you go and embrace that, and at the risk of falling flat on your face, at the risk of being made fun of at the dinner table in front of relatives, at the risk of feeling embarrassed or even risking failure, which, let's be real, is only feedback. If you pursue that and you say, you know what, I'm going to muster up the courage to do things different. I'm going to break out of my routine. I'm going to step off the map. You know what, I'm not just going to be a pedestrian or a passenger. I'm going to get in the driver's seat and see what happens when I step into the unknown. That is where you open yourself up to spontaneity and synchronicity and all of the wonderful things that can be filled into this gap that you create of uncertainty.
And that is when you start being the main character, the main player. That is when you are being the player, right? Yes. Rather than being the observer of life. It's rather than just being a passive bystander, you are participating in the flow of life.
Yeah.
Because there are people that are just watching life go by and they're just being passive and they're not getting involved. They're just observers. And then there are ones that are in life doing things, being the creator through their creative faculties.
Yeah, and you know, I think the reason we're talking about this right now, like why is this relevant now more than ever, is because I think number one, the world needs people to think differently, to invent new solutions, to inspire people to be true to themselves and to develop and follow their own values and explore the unknown. And also, there's never been a better time in terms of what's possible now. I think about this often, about the trajectory of human potential. We've always had potential as a species, of course. You know, we traversed the entire planet 1,000 years ago. But what the average person, without having to come from money or having any special skills or any special amount of luck, the amount of opportunity that we now have, every single one of us, if you are watching this, it means, for instance, that you have a device that follows you around, that probably has a camera and a Wi-Fi connection. Okay, so that's one thing that exists now that just came about, just like a blade or a fire or a wheel that was invented in the past. Now we have these devices that allow us to communicate ideas, to learn, to speak with people in real time over anywhere in the world.
And I think one thing I want to say on that is
it's mind-boggling.
I think I sometimes talk in this podcast a little bit about, brain rot and getting in the scroll hole too long. It's like a negative thing. Yes, it is. However, I do want to preface and say, we all have free distribution networks. The fact that I have been able to upload a podcast every single day in January 2026 is insane. Like, the world has given us access to free distribution networks. I can, for free, just publish my content anywhere and it gets distributed. And this is all free distribution. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And I think that we have to recognize that you live in a time where back in the day, you would have to be a news anchor or you would have to be someone that went to journalism school,
Well, even then you were on a track that was predetermined. You had to be a owner of a media company or a company with hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars of spend.
And then you couldn't say what you wanted to say freely. The fact that we have freedom of speech, freedom of distribution, the ability to put things out there, we live in the most insane time in history. And then you have things like AI and artificial intelligence to be able to help you shape and think about things and argue and research. And look, you've got to use that sparingly, and you also have to think for yourself, and you cannot. You've got to find the middle ground with these things, because I'm not a big proponent.
It's a collaborator.
Yeah.
Not someone who you're supposed to be following.
Yes, and it's not something that should be writing everything for you and telling you what to do. It's something there to help you develop your ideas. But what we're trying to say is we live in the most insane time. And this is a time where more people than ever can step into the role of expressing that main character energy, that main player energy that we all have inside of us. And I also want to say here, sometimes I think we all end up being rather an NPC at something or a main character at something. And I think we move through both of these modes. And being the main character or being that main player energy is something that I feel I really want to encourage you listening to this podcast to cultivate within yourself, to express, because it's something that we used to hold back so much because it was something that would get us in trouble. It would make us stand out. But now in this day and age, it is the people that are speaking freely, that are really practicing that essence of audacity, that are really making a change in the world, that are doing the things that they want to do, that are being noticed, because the world really does favor the brave. It rewards people that go out there and do things that are off script.
There was a great quote I was just seeing yesterday when I was on a call with someone for our teacher training.
Oh, yes.
And she was saying how she wanted to make big changes in the world, but she's always doubted herself. And I remember this quote that I read on the wall at Earth Cafe in Seminyak.
Oh, yeah?
And the quote went something along the lines of, "Never doubt the power of a small group of dedicated people to change the world. In fact, it's the only thing that ever has."
I love that.
And so it's so funny. I think the key lesson here is you do not need to change yourself. What you actually need to do is to take the handbrake of your true self, because I believe that we all have a unique voice, a unique soul, a unique set of experiences and beliefs and values inside of us that we want to express. But we are compulsively editing ourselves for fear of being ostracized by the community, criticized by whoever, being, reprimanded by authority figures. And meanwhile, we are living now in the first time in history, in a time where you are rewarded for saying, screw it, this is who I am. And I'm going to put myself out there, and those who are meant to resonate will, and those who don't, won't. And some people will leave some bad comments, and other people, if we're talking in terms of media distribution here right now, you're going to get people who don't like what you're going to say. And that's okay. They're entitled to have their opinion. It's okay. You can let it go. So there's a big thing about becoming empty to the influences out there, to be able to honor them and recognize them and accept them, but having the courage to trust yourself more than somebody else's projection of yourself. That's how I see it.
I love that. And I think that's a really amazing point. And the projection part is so interesting. Recognizing that anything anyone is saying is a projection of their own consciousness and their own perspective on the game, because they are looking at what you are doing from whatever level they are at. And I'm not a very big person in saying this person's above you and below you. No, we're all just operating in this super frequency, and some are higher, some are lower, but it's souls are all having their own experience, and everyone is here to figure things out. And something that I have really learned with that is when I trigger someone, or when I activate someone, or when someone doesn't agree with me, I recognize that one, that person is teaching me something about myself. One, a lot of the time it's helping me strengthen my perspective, my argument, to make space for what they are experiencing, because they're probably experiencing something that I haven't experienced, so it gives more nuance to whatever it is that I'm doing. Two, sometimes it makes me go, oh shit, I didn't see that perspective. I better have a real bigger, deeper think about, am I actually right, or am I just completely seeing this from one angle and I haven't even looked at the other angle? Therefore, it helps me widen my worldview and become a more worldly person. And then three, another thing that I go is, maybe I'm meant to be that person's trigger. Maybe I'm meant to really piss them off. Maybe I'm meant to be the person that they get so frustrated about that they start feeling all of these things that they then start awakening or shifting in some way. There are all different reasons why these things happen. And I think that when you get out of the idea of it, oh my God, this person's arguing with me, this person's disagreeing with me, what magical things have happened from disagreements and arguments? I think we think about them as negative things, but really it is debating, challenging each other that has enabled us as a society to rise up, to be where we are at. And it has allowed us to have progress. If we did not have any, and I've definitely come to, if you've been listening to this podcast, you would know 2025 is my year of learning how to have the hard conversation. I've definitely come to recognize that conflict, although uncomfortable, actually is one of the things that makes us grow and makes us develop and also makes us understand the world in ways that we can never understand it if we were just looking at everything through the lens of peace. And sometimes we have to go through a level of chaos to get to a sense of utopia. Sometimes there has to be dystopia to know what utopia is. It is through the contrast that you are able to make sense of this world, because contrast is part of the game. And we didn't come to Earth to just experience a high spiritual almighty vibration. We came here in the 3D to experience the density of like what this experience is. And it is dense and it is thick. And sometimes it feels like literally wading through mud. Earth to me is wading through mud. It is, and then there is flowing in water. Like you have earth, which is literally mud, thick, heavy, and then you have water, which is just flow. And those are the two modes.
Yeah. And
wow, that was very esoteric. That was, I was.
And look, I think we all know this deep down anyway. Otherwise, we wouldn't have sayings like "life begins at the end of your comfort zone."
Yeah.
Everything you want lies on the other side of fear. These are all pointing at something, which is, soft living makes soft people and pressure makes diamonds. So, yeah, shine on, you crazy diamond.
Shine on, you crazy diamond. Recognize that the best is yet to come. You are in a game. You are both the NPC and the main character. You get to choose when you get to be both. I would encourage you to exercise your ability to be a main character and to be the player of the game in as many moments as you can, because then you awaken from the illusion. And just remember, as always, and I'm going to tell you every single podcast, you create your own reality. So go out there.
Make some magic.
So go out there and make some freaking magic. Over and out.